Stop. I will be... Never mind, I can't say that on stream. Okay, they are done. They've been done for over 20 minutes. They're not coming back until tomorrow.
Now, the important idea is that when you fight a war like this, okay, which is traditional warfare, you must have the consent of the public. Okay? Because it is the public that sends soldiers, that provides money, that gives you political support. But in 2003, the US military changed its military doctrine to one of shock and awe. Okay? And what shock and awe means is that you don't have to follow these three principles anymore. You can use air supremacy. You also have technological omniscience, and you also have special forces. And this allows you to fight wars cheaply, quickly, and decisively so that you no longer need public political support for fighting wars. And as we also discussed, this created the idea of hubris in the American military. So the American military, because of the 2003 war in Iraq, are confident that they can win any war, any place, against any enemy. We know that this doctrine is actually not true. And we know because of something called Operation Prosperity Guardian. I will nuke Israel, okay? When Putin says that, possibility. Who can help the Iranians now? Russia, okay, you understand? So before this war happens...
Okay, there are people in the background at least, Jesus.
Iran and Russia must come to an agreement where Putin says now from the onset, no one is allowed to use nuclear weapons, okay? If Iran uses nuclear weapons, I will nuke Iran. If the United States uses nuclear weapons, I will nuke the United States. If Israel uses nuclear weapons, I will nuke Israel, okay? If Putin says that, how will the war react?
We're in such a bizarro world. You've got me nodding my head to Tucker Carlson videos. You got Tucker Carlson going, why are we going to war with Iran again? And I'm like, yeah, you tell him, brother. Hello, everybody. Welcome once again to the Weekly Show podcast. My name is Jon Stewart, and I will be the host today of your podcast as we find ourselves in a unbelievably fraught moment in the crossroads of history. And I think I want to talk just a very brief moment about the president of the United States, Donald Aloysius Trump. You hear a lot about the grifting and the corruption and the meme coin and the authoritarian tendencies and the overuse of executive action and his militaristic fetishizing of bringing troops into American cities and ripping families apart and just the general moral decay and abyss that we find ourselves living through. But I have to say, I just don't think we talk enough about the incompetence.
Sure.
The just rank shittiness of how they accomplish things and the price we are paying for his inability to. It's as though everything that occurs on the world stage is just another weekly episode of his program. What's this week's episode? Liberation Day and tariffs. Great. Let's do that. Oh, hey, it's tanking the bond market and everybody is freaking out. Oh, great. Yeah, no, that's the plan. Now we're just going to give everybody 90 days. And then he comes on and goes, everybody's kissing my ass to make deals. But nobody seems to be making any fucking deals. And so then we just move on to the next episode. Oh, this week's episode is we're going to go in with the military to Los Angeles because that's exploding in chaos and violence, even though it's not. And God, if anybody, has experience dealing with unrest in Los Angeles, it's the people that the cops that already live there. And now it's Iran. And it's just, hey, it's the Iran episode. And I gave him 60 days because I'm the deal maker in chief and we're going to have a nuclear deal. And this is all going according to plan. And it's utter incompetence. We're in such a bizarro world. You've got me nodding my head to Tucker Carlson videos. You got Tucker Carlson going, why are we going to war with Iran again? And I'm like, yeah, you tell him, brother. Like, that's how fucking upside down we find ourselves in this moment. And it's all based on one distinct premise. And that is we are being led by someone who doesn't know what they're doing. And out of Doge has a skeleton staff of, you speaking with Ben Rhodes, who's the co-host of Pod Save the World and a former deputy national security advisor to President Obama, and Christian Amanpour, CNN's chief international anchor, host of the new podcast, Christian and the X-Files with Jamie Ruman. Ben and Christian, thank you so much for joining us. This is such a fraught moment. And Christian, I want to start with you because you have just had, we've been hearing from Israel, we've been hearing from the United States, we've been hearing from a variety of sources. You have just gotten off with a discussion with the deputy foreign minister in Iran. So if I could very quickly, Christian, what is the viewpoint from Iran right now?
Well, I'm going to download quickly because I've literally just come off the set. And just
Please.
To give you a context, it's very difficult. Their internet, because of these strikes, are very compromised. Their phones are very compromised. Obviously, you can see there have been targeted assassination of leaders by the Israelis. They have wiped out a whole layer of military leadership. And people are scared about using their phones. So just to get this was quite extraordinary. And I didn't ask exactly where he was, and he didn't want to tell me. But nonetheless, in
Don't
Tehran.
imagine he would. Yeah.
Right. So in response to what President Trump has been saying, like, I demand unconditional surrender. That we could get your supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, if we decided. I might not. He's also just been saying, Trump, I might join Israel on these strikes. I might not. There's just a lot of mixed messages coming out, and I'm not sure what Trump intends. But he said, the deputy Iranian foreign minister, that, look, we do not buckle under threats. And it's very boilerplate Iran commentary. But it happens to be true based on history. He reminded me how they'd gone through 8 years of war with Iraq and Saddam Hussein, how the whole world was not on their side and how they emerged without surrendering. And he said the same here. He said, Israel is trying to destroy them and that we will not surrender and we will continue to defend ourselves. But he did say, and I think Ben would be interested in this, that we thought we were going to a negotiation on Sunday, June 15th in Oman. I was and my bosses were headed that way. And then 2 days before, out of the blue, we were attacked across the country. And he also said that civilian areas were attacked and buildings and infrastructure, as well as the military and nuclear sites. I happen to know this for a fact. I'm half Iranian. I grew up there. I know many of the locations, but importantly, I still have family and friends. So I'm listening to them, and there's a huge amount of panic, and it's very difficult for them right now. But that's the bottom line.
Well, Christian, I so appreciate that perspective. And we can get into a little later the complicated relationship that so many Iranians have with their government and what's going on in there. But I want to jump in really quickly to go off of what Christian said. In my mind, this is another example of sort of the impulsive and strange nature of our administration here in the United States. So the deal maker in chief, the most wonderful negotiator that's ever existed in the history of deal making and shaking hands, is going to make a great deal with Iran. They've got 60 days apparently to do it because, as you know, the best deals always come with only the amount of time you can make them. And then on day 61, they are attacked by Israel. Do either of you know whether or not the United States was taken by surprise by that attack, or whether or not Iran had any idea that this 60-day so-called limitation on negotiations was a hard red line that would be met immediately with widespread bombing? Do any of you have a sense that...
Just regardless of if they knew or not, this is a pretty stupid framing. Like, you had 60 days to negotiate, and then did you know you were going to do something bad right after the 60 days? Well, I mean, how many days after? I mean, you have 60 days to negotiate. If you don't negotiate anything, like, I mean, what do you expect to happen? I don't know.
This was pure impulse on the part of the Israelis, that this was coordinated, or that the 60-day negotiation was a ruse by which to get the Iranians to drop their guard. Ben, I'll start with you.
I just don't believe that Trump was somehow... first of all, I don't believe that the 60-day thing was a firm deadline.
I never understood to be that, by the way.
Yeah, because why would there be a meeting set up with Steve Witkoff? But also, the Iranians weren't acting like they were going to be attacked. They were not taking security precautions. That's how some of these people were able to be killed in their homes. If they thought that day 61 was a potential military operation, they would have changed their pattern of behavior more than they did. I think that Israel believed, and Netanyahu believed more specifically, that they had a window of opportunity where Iran's proxies had been dealt a blow, where Iran's on the back foot, where they'd softened up their air defenses in some of those previous strikes, and he wanted to take this action. And frankly, the diplomacy that Trump was in was a threat to their capacity to take military action against the nuclear program. And so he does it after the 60-day thing. That gives him kind of some pretext to say, I let this diplomacy go. They have not even really presented any kind of detailed intelligence case that suggests an imminence of Iran having a nuclear weapon. He said the kind of same things he always does.
He's been doing that for about 30 years now, I believe.
He's playing the hits.
It's coming tomorrow. They got it tomorrow.
This is the problem, is nobody can credibly say that, if they didn't do this today, Iran was going to do something tomorrow. The only thing that was looming was this Witkoff meeting in Oman. And Trump, I think, has been hurriedly trying to get on board with what is happening to him in terms of Netanyahu having changed the dynamic. And he doesn't want to admit that he just got rolled by Netanyahu. And now he's being rolled all the way potentially into joining the war, And we can talk about all the different dimensions of that. I can tell you, John, that as someone who's been in simulations of what would happen in precisely this scenario.
When you say been in simulations, what do you mean by that?
It means essentially
it means the Matrix.
You war game out. What would happen if the Israelis bombed
never mind.
Iranian
Just
facilities?
So these are sort of AI generated or computer.
Or I guess he doesn't have to know. A war game is just where you are saying, let's assume something happens, and then you kind of play out all the scenarios, and depending on what you're practicing for, it doesn't have to be like a real video game or AI thing, but
simulated. Here's where the casualties would be. Here's what would occur.
Or people run them, or people kind of run them who know a lot about this stuff.
Okay.
It always leads to Israel asking the United States to bomb this facility, and it almost always leads to regime change in Iran, because it's like, well, why do we stop now? And so we're on the, people have been thinking about this for a long time, and we're on the ride right now. And the question is, can we get off it?
Right. And the facility you're talking about is that one nuclear facility that is buried in a mountain that is apparently can only be reached by United States bunker busting weaponry. Yes.
That's right.
I believe it's called.
Fordo. And for all the talk about how sophisticated this Israeli operation's been, if you don't blow up Fordo, you've only set the Iranian nuclear program back a few months. And so obviously they're going to want us to get the underground facility that only we can hit. We are the only people that have a bunker buster bomb that can get at that facility. The only people who have planes that can drop it. And frankly, we don't even know that it would destroy it entirely. That's how deep underground this is.
Right.
In answer to your question, John, about did the Iranians know they had a 60-day deadline? No, according to the deputy foreign minister.
Well, I mean, they were all going to meet in Oman. I mean, on day 63. So what's the point?
Well, right. And Ben will remember that it took, 18 months to get the Obama administration, called the JCPOA, the nuclear deal, that was a perfectly reasonable and manageable and verifiable arms control deal.
Signed off on, by the way, by the world's other countries, Russia, China,
by the UN. Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, this was not a bilateral deal between the United States and Iran. This was a multilateral.
Exactly. But the key here, and Ben's alluded to it, is that Prime Minister Netanyahu has never believed in negotiation. Just like he does not believe in a Palestinian state, he does not believe in negotiating security around Iran's nuclear program. He believes in wiping it out and regime destruction, as we've just been mentioning. But there has been successful diplomacy. They all say, oh, diplomacy failed. But no, in 2015, under the Obama administration, actually it succeeded. And then there was this concerted campaign to topple it. And that's what caused Trump to pull out of it when he was in 1.0. So Trump pulling out of this nuclear deal set the Irans off on, more enrichment. So now they have hundreds of kilograms of 60% enrichment as part of a bargaining technique or to show their capability. But even the American intelligence community, and Tulsi Gabbard said it again this week, we assess that they have not made a decision to go to a bomb or to weaponize, and that even if they did, it would take a number of years. She was slapped around.
There's 0% chance that that's true. I can't even believe that she said that. I don't even know if Tulsi Gabbard said that. I think the far out estimates were it might take a few months, but a few years? No shot.
By Trump. And now she says, oh no, I have no daylight between me and Trump. So it's all very confusing.
So, you guys are familiar with websites, right? Ground News. It comes with
Ground News.
Breaker underreported slash.
Why are we watching this? Why was I like this?
Ones. Do it. 18, I think. In 2015, after that deal was signed, when Trump pulled out, and I believe, what was it, 2018, I think, when they did that? Was that at the behest of Israel as well? Or were there other forces that had asked for? Was that merely a knee-jerk reaction to anything that Obama did, I will undo, and therefore I'm going to pull out? Do you know what the lead up to pulling out of that deal entailed?
I would say it was a convergence of those factors. That Trump wanted to dismantle anything Obama did, but that Israel and kind of hawkish types in the U.S. Wanted us out of the deal from the day we were in it. I think what's important to note, John, about that is that Trump wanted to find that Iran was not complying with the deal. And if you recall, he kept asking for that report, and his own administration, including guys like Jim Mattis, his Secretary of Defense, kept saying, well, no, actually, Iran is complying with this deal. You shouldn't pull out. And then ultimately he kind of overruled his more conventional but still hawkish advisors to pull out. But I think it was Trump's instinct was I just want to get out of whatever deal Obama was in. Because the deal that he was negotiating with Witkoff sounded very similar to the JCPOA, the Iran deal. And we wasted a decade on this, and frankly led us to a place where we might end up in a war because of that antipathy for Obama.
Christiane, is that your understanding of how things went down?
Yes. You could say, if you wanted to be really generous, that Witkoff had come up with another plan, and it was about this sort of consortium whereby they would try to let Iran say that it could still enrich, but maybe not right on Iranian soil, but maybe in an island. Anyways, it was to try to thread all the needles. To go into another deal that was not exactly Obama's deal, but it was similar. But it had this thing which said Iran cannot enrich. So how were they going to resolve that? Because Iran believes that to be their fundamental international right. And so that was what was being worked out.
Right. Especially given that Israel has nuclear weapons and America has, and everyone else has nuclear weapons and North Korea has.
Well, that's the thing, John, you just hit on something really, really vital.
Yeah.
Because one of the unintended consequences, and there are always unintended consequences in a war that is not planned out, in a war that has no exit strategy, in a war that has actually no big strategy other than let's set back or maybe let's have regime change. Some say that if this regime survives, that they will then, it will be a self-fulfilling prophecy that they may, like North Korea, decide to go in secret, to get out of the IAEA, the NPT, the inspections, and actually to become a nuclear power because they've been shown by Israel that their conventional weapons are useless.
Not enough of a deterrent.
And this shadow war, so it could have a kind of a worse negative impact.
And I want to step back for a second and talk about the macro idea of risk assessment within this world. The one thing about Israel that I truly do not understand is this idea of they won't live in a world of risk, but we live in a world of risk. There is no zero risk. It's this idea of if there is one suicide attack that is done by a Palestinian, well, then we must remove Hamas, or we must wage war until we are safe. And that just seems like a fundamentally flawed. The United States certainly lives in a world of risk. Russia has nuclear weapons, China has nuclear weapons, North Korea has nuclear weapons. They've all expressed at different times antipathy towards the United States or a desire to use them, in North Korea's case, against the United States. So this idea that we can create a world where there is no risk, it seems that what they create is a world of instability where everything is at risk.
I mean, we have constantly fought for a world where we try to decrease nuclear proliferation, no?
Yes.
And so I just want to get at the underlying fundamental principle that is being deployed here that's causing such destruction in Gaza and all of this death, as though you can create a world of no risk through violence. It makes no sense to me. Ben, what is your thought on that larger principle?
I think you put your finger on it. There's two things I'd say about this. Because the first...
can somebody just the violence doesn't solve anything and blah, blah, blah. Okay. Then let's just run this. Let's say that you have a crazy country, and let's say that country says, I'm going to get nuclear weapons, and then I'm going to bomb everybody. What do you do? Can we just start there? Because I don't understand where this...
You can create a world of no risk through violence. It makes no sense to me.
No one says you can create a world of no risk through violence. The idea is that the violence or the pressure or the power that you have means that there will be less risk than allowing everybody to do, there's going to be some violence. The question is just who has the ability to control most of it, right?
Ben, what is your thought on that larger principle?
I think you put your finger on it. There's two things I'd say about this. Because the first is that there's been an Iranian nuclear program for decades, and Israel's lived with that. And Israel's done quite well in that world, right? And what we were trying to do is put a lid on that program, make sure they can't get a weapon. The risk is them having a nuclear weapon.
Transparency and verification.
Yeah, them having a nuclear weapon, now that's a different level of risk. But them having a few centrifuges operating, if you have transparency, verification, you got inspectors all over there, you're looking at the whole supply chain, like that's a level of risk that you should be able to live with. And my concern is, in trying to remove all risk, Israel is creating more risk for itself. In the sense of, if you remove that for everybody, if you remove that government through violence, it does it. We saw in Iraq, Afghanistan, and Libya in the bomb years. You get something usually worse. You either get the IRGC, the worst guys with guns in Iran will be the strongest guys, or you get kind of a failed state civil war in a country of over 90 million people with no plan for what comes next. You also could get a situation where, even what we've seen in Gaza, do we really think that that's going to bring meaningful, quote unquote, peace over time?
Or that you can bomb people out of wanting to be free?
Yeah.
What if Netanyahu decides he's actually the biggest threat to Israel? Does he have to bomb himself at that point?
Well, but this leads to the second point I was going to make, because we can get into like they're creating enemies for the future. One of the things I hate about our discourse on this stuff is if the negative consequences don't happen next week, it's like, well, look, see, that worked. Sure. Well, wars usually like the price comes due 5 years, 10 years out, right? Iraq took a while, looked great when the statue fell in Baghdad, right? But the second thing I think is important here is they're changing the nature, a country that does what they're doing in Gaza. Or a country, they've now gone to war in Gaza, the West Bank, Lebanon, Syria, Yemen, Iran. That's not healthy. And their society is moving to the far right. I think there's a synergy between what you're doing abroad with violence and the kind of government you have at home. And so it's not just the risks of their foreign policy. It's the risks of what this is doing to Israeli society and democracy. Because
what does it turn you into?
I have people I know who are like hawks, and they're like, well, I don't like what Netanyahu's doing with democracy in Israel, but I support, all these other things he's doing. I'm like, no, those things are connected. He's consolidating what it feels like a far right extremist, political system in Israel.
Right. And a dehumanization of anybody that is. You bring up such an interesting point. And Christian, I want to get to this with you. He talks about the unforeseen consequences that royal future events that don't seem to be connected years later. And I want to go back to this because people don't talk about this enough.
Can we bring up anything besides 9/11? Or not 9/11, I'm sorry, the Iraq War. Let's see. Maybe ISIS. Let's go.
In 1953, the CIA, along with British Petroleum and the UK government, overthrew Mohammad Mossadegh, who was the democratically elected leader of Iran. They destabilized that country, allowed the Shah of Iran to gain control because he was Western friendly. Did we not sow the seeds for this entire nightmare ourselves in 1953 to some extent?
As you know, that coup was the first of America's many coups throughout the 50s and 60s and even into the 70s. In Africa, Lumumba was killed. In Central America, all over. In Brazil, they supported military dictatorship. It was a dreadful, dreadful time, and it all backfired against the U.S. In fact, it's said, and I was there during this,
It all backfired against the U.S. Who won the Cold War again? I'm sorry, I'm trying to remember.
1978-79 Iranian Revolution. They brought this up over and over and over again. This is one of the reasons that they were motivated to, rebel and rise up against the Shah, and also to essentially blame the United States in great part. Now, we've moved many, many decades on from that, and I think the high point was the 2015 JCPOA, because it's a very difficult relationship, and the United States and Iran were not yet ready to address all the issues. But I can tell you from my own personal perspective that as a reporter, I met with all these top-level Iranians for decades. Ever since 1995, I was the first into the nuclear plant. There was a civilian nuclear plant called Bushehr on the Persian Gulf. I'm the first and the only one to have interviewed almost all.
Did the U.S. win because of all the coups or in spite of them? I mean, you can have that debate, but she's making it sound like the coups were all bad when we were doing the coups, with the idea of winning the Cold War, and then we did win the Cold War. So that's like a very, very, very weird argument to make.
All the Iranian presidents, including the so-called reform presidents, over these decades, many, many officials have said to me, background, off the record and this and that, and even on camera, that they wanted to make peace, maybe not the right word, but to close the file of conflict with the United States on all issues, on terrorism, on missiles, on nuclear and everything. And they wanted to get into negotiations. But as Ben knows, that
the coups can backfire and the U.S. can still win, so her point isn't automatically invalid. The point's not automatically invalid, but it is automatically retarded. This is the equivalent to a friend who weighs 450 pounds making fun of his other friend who just, ran his 15th 5K because his friend hurt his ankle. And he's like, oh, see, that's why I don't bother going to the gym or running, because I don't want to injure myself. That's what that sounds like. It's fucking retarded. You would have to elaborate on that point way more than to just say, wow, look, we did those coups and look, all of them backfired. Okay, well, the Soviet Union fucking collapsed and the United States has been the leader of the free world for the past 3.5 decades. So, I feel like you probably need to elaborate on that a little bit more, but okay.
This was scuttled many times by hardliners in the United States, hardliners in Iran, and hardliners in Israel. So that was never possible. So the JCPOA was the only major negotiation that came out of 40 years of this Iranian revolution. As you know, nobody in the world wants to see a nuclear-armed Iran. Iran says it doesn't want a nuclear weapon. Intelligence says it hasn't got one right now. It hasn't made a decision to get one. There was a time, and again, I was in conversation with a senior Iranian during the post 9/11 time in Afghanistan, and this Iranian called me in and he said, because there was the whole invasion of Iraq and all the rest of it based on a fear that they had weapons of mass destruction, which proved not to be true. And we know the backlash. But this Iranian told me, yes, we did have a serious discussion in the leadership about whether we should weaponize. But then we decided not to, because that would make it much more dangerous for us in the region and in our very dangerous neighborhood. So they decided not to. And that's what intelligence says. Since 2003, there's no evidence of that. So I think that, this is a really difficult situation between Iran, Israel, and the United States that requires not Trump saying I can fix it in 60 days or what did he say, overnight between Russia and Ukraine, or fix Gaza. It requires staffing, experts, technical expertise, and patience to negotiate.
Christiani's got one guy. Witkoff must be a Platinum Miles member right now. He's got one guy. Marco Rubio is doing 5 different, he's like the Secretary of State, the NSA. I think he's the ombudsman. He's the parliamentarian now for the Senate. Like, they are understaffed. They dosed themselves out of having any ability to carry out the complexity of the tasks that they need to be carried out. And so these are all shortcuts. And it seems like the easiest thing to subvert in the world is peace. It seems like, as Ben talked earlier, and Ben, I want to ask you this because it's hardliners can easily, if we remember in Iraq, Hans Blix had gone in and they were going to be inspecting all the sites that had supposed weapons of mass destruction. And we had a process in place that would have avoided the chaos and carnage of those 20 years in Iraq, in Afghanistan, all those places. And it was easily subverted. Ben, how fragile are these moves towards a more stable, peaceful world when hardliners are involved in the room?
The problem is our politics in this country is so messed up on national security that it was much harder to get the Iran deal through Congress than it was to take this country to war in Iraq.
Why is that, Ben, when you say it's harder to get that peace deal through than war? What is messed up?
Because the Republicans in 2008 decided that literally every single fucking thing that Obama would try to do, they were going to obstruct. McConnell literally said his entire goal was to rape America. Oh, I'm sorry. No, he said he was going to do everything he could to make Obama a one-term president. That's what his stated goal was. Republicans have not had the desire to actually govern this fucking country in decades. It's deplorable. It's disgusting. These people should be fucking exiled. Every single elected Republican. It's just insane how you can just constantly fucking destroy your country so much over and over and over again in the name of politics, and then when you're in power, it's just unhinged. It's actually unbelievable.
Messed up about it.
Well, first of all, peace is, we could have a long conversation about all the actors that influence American politics, but I would just say peace is inherently messy, right? Like the Iran nuclear deal, sure, like it didn't remove the entire Iranian nuclear program. So it's easy to kind of shoot at a target of like, this is a compromise. This is a deal between adversaries. You make peace with your adversaries. These are bad people. Why are you even talking to these people? Because you make peace with the bad guys.
Right, sort of how it works, right?
It's not hard to make a deal with the UK. Like even Trump could do that. Whereas
but he hasn't yet.
Or you kind of promise that it's going to look good and we're going to take out these bad guys. And actually, it usually looks good at the beginning of the war, right?
Right.
At the beginning, it's like, look, the Israelis are killing all these guys, and wow, Mossad had drones in Tehran. Isn't that cool? But to your point, the coup in 1953 looked pretty good. It was like, wow, we got our guy back in there, and now that Iranian oil and gas is flowing, there's no concern about them being on the wrong side of the Cold War. 1979, it didn't look good, and so I think that the problem is we are so short term in our thinking and our response. And I'll fault the Democratic Party here. You can sense the kind of fear in some of these Democratic politicians right now. It's like, well, if I oppose this Israeli military strike or oppose the U.S. getting involved, am I picking a fight with Netanyahu? Will I be called weak? Maybe this strike is going to look good, and then Trump's going to say I'm weak. Stand for something. If we haven't learned anything from the last 25 years, we've learned that violence in the Middle East is unlikely to lead to better outcomes. And certainly the violent removal of governments by the United States, or Israel for that matter, is going to lead to a better government. Like, I don't know.
You have to, I don't know. Can we be done with foreign policy? It's easy to say that as an American, and maybe, I don't even know if it would be true as an American. But you have to look at Israel, at least from their perspective, if we care about Israel's perspective, which I guess we don't have to. But it's like, peace in the Middle East hasn't gotten them anywhere. Violence in the Middle East has destroyed Hamas, destroyed Hezbollah, and led to the collapse of Assad's regime in Syria, got rid of Saddam Hussein, and now is on the verge of at least doing damage to Iran. What is the alternative? Israel has no reason to think that peace anywhere, because nobody ever tries to compel the other sides to do anything peaceful. Except Obama, who got that nuclear deal done, but he did this internationally. I'm pretty sure Saudi Arabia and Israel both hated Obama for that deal. And then in the United States, we have no ability to do anything internationally anymore because we're so torn against each other. So I don't know how anything the United States can even negotiate and stand on its own two legs for more than a single presidential term at this point.
How many countries we have to try that out in before we learn that is not what works. And so I think, opponents just need to simplify the message. And Christiane will remember, she can attest, when we said in the Obama years that it's either this deal or a war, we were called, how dare you say that? Well, that was the case. Because either you're going to have a deal over this nuclear program, or Israel was going to do something like this and try to get the United States involved in that war. That's where Trump is now. Trump is either going to join this war, or he's going to try to stop it. And that is such a consequential choice.
And I think you guys saw this in your administration. Netanyahu, as I said, has been trying to do this for decades. No other American president allowed him to do it. Everyone restrained him. He came to Congress and was given the floor to address Republicans practically only to diss the JCPOA. He did that
charts.
time.
I think he even went to Kinko's and got some bomb charts he drew, little pictures.
Cartoon bombs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's an absolute now successful strategy against negotiations and against getting a deal. And I think that this is, we talk about peace. It is hard, but look at what the US was able to do, for instance, with the parties in Northern Ireland. Look at what the South Africans were able to do after apartheid. Look at any number. Look at Oslo. I know Oslo has not come to fruition, and we wish we were back in the mid-90s, but that was, all sides getting together with really vested, honest brokers and third parties.
It's not the same, though. Nelson Mandela explicitly wanted to negotiate to get rid of apartheid. I can't speak to the Ireland shit or the Good Friday deal, but I imagine it seemed like there were people on both sides that explicitly wanted to agree to some deal. The Arab side or the Palestinian side to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, there has never, ever, ever been a deal on the table that they've been willing to accept. What are you even negotiating? I don't think either side could even fucking tell you at this point. Both sides are always just maximally pushing for whatever it is they think they can get. Palestinians for 67 borders or the eradication of Israel completely, and then Netanyahu for every, square mile of land that he feels like he can conquer in Israel. So, I mean, what are you negotiating against? What are you negotiating for? What's even the deal on the table?
Whether it was the US, whether it was the Oslo negotiators and the parties on the ground decided to come and they got the help to move towards peace. Bosnia, I mean, it's not perfect, but after, I covered that war, there was a US brokered end and, it's tenuous, but it's not back to war.
Wasn't there something else that happened to get that Bosnia deal figured out? I feel like there was a couple of boom booms there, but okay.
And so it is possible. Politicians and leaders have to decide whether they want to do that or whether they want to react in this kind of easier way, as Ben was laying out. And, whatever you might say about President Biden and about should he have restrained Israel more, given what's going on in Gaza, on the day that he landed in Israel after October 7th and the horrors that were committed there, he told them, don't do what we did in Iraq. Don't go for revenge. Look what happened to us. Self-defense, but don't go crazy like we did in Iraq, because look at the blowback. And it's been severe.
Why do you think that politicians are more likely to be okay owning the years of instability and chaos that occurs from these types of military interventions, but they are afraid to own whatever?
Shut up. Wait, what's going on here?
Even singular incidents might be the result of peace.
Okay, I don't know. Hold on. I'm restarting this computer. The Patriots are in control. True. How long were they drilling for after you got the stream? I think until 4:40. Will you come to my max party on RuneScape? I don't have any max characters, my dude. I'm sorry. I'm a fucking loser. Why is this computer's top monitor off? What? No. Why? What? What? Hold on. Did something come unplugged? What a fucked up day. Ugh. Link me the clip. I need it. No! Why did it stop? Oh, no, wait. It's come back. Okay. Sorry. You have to... The graphics card takes 12 hours to flash your monitors at you over and over again just to drive you insane.
Did there.
I don't care about this.
I don't know what, if any, form of murder has, but, you know, there's a lot of fucked up shit that happens.
God! What a fucked up day!
What happened?
Dude, my entire
So what do we think about this dead mouse thing?
Base, true. Strong case cringe filing. The problem with Ethan Klein's new lawsuits. Uh-oh. Oh, this is what we're gonna do this guy next.
All right, guys, I got some big breaking news here for you. Multiple pieces of big breaking news.
Uh-oh.
So the legendary journalist Seymour Hersh is out with a big report.
Driving and texting? Where's all the people that are angry about this?
On what's going on with Iran right now. And according to him, he says it's not just the case that the U.S. is gonna directly enter the war and start bombing Iran and going after their nuclear facility. According to him, the decision has already been made to do full regime change. So that's a big deal. I mean,
according to who?
Do nuclear facility.
Wait, what?
As it's not just the case. Journalist Seymour Hersh is out with a big report.
Oh, Seymour Hersh. Okay.
Report on what's going on with Iran right now. And according to him, he says it's not just the case that the U.S. is going to directly enter the war and start bombing Iran and going after their nuclear facility. According to him, the decision has already been made.
Seymour Hersh? I think he's one of those guys. There's a lot of journalists who have like one good story and then everything else they do is dog shit. Glenn Greenwald is another great example of that. I think Matt Taibbi, all these guys, like they get a good story, they get a good break one time, but then everything else they do is just dog shit. And I think Seymour Hersh, I think has had some dog shit reporting around the Ukrainian, Russian stuff. It's just, I don't know. He tried to, yeah, I don't know. Ugh.
To do full regime change. So that's a big deal. I mean, as of this moment, Trump is still playing hide
Like the fact that you would solo cite him is mega sus, but whatever.
And pretending nobody knows what I do. Maybe I'll attack, maybe I won't. Nobody knows what I do. But the thing is, we already know the U.S. is directly involved. Obviously, we're arming Israel. We're funding Israel. We provided them support on the ground.
That's not even close to what directly involved means, but okay.
We greenlit the initial attacks, the initial multiple waves of attacks. So we're already directly involved in the war. And the media is talking about it from the perspective now of, will the U.S. get directly involved? Illegally, by the way, because that's what it would be, because there's no approval from Congress. Will the U.S. get directly involved and bomb their main nuclear facility, which I believe is called Fordo? And what Seymour Hersh is saying is, not only have they already decided we're definitely doing that, they're also going to go after the supreme leader, but then they're also going to go after as many other military and political officials as they can, and even go as far as to go after, like, the police stations in Tehran and things of that nature. So a total onslaught has already been greenlit, and he reports that the reason that they're waiting is because Trump wants to do it during the weekend so that the impact on the markets is not as bad when Monday rolls around. So if he were to launch these, in his mind, hey, if I launch the attack during the week, the market is going to absolutely plummet, and we want to avoid that, so let's wait till the weekend and I'll pretend like I don't even know if I'm attacking yet. So that's a huge deal, huge report, and this guy has a track record of being right on a lot of stuff. So that's super important. But there's actually even a bigger and scarier report out there. So this is from The Guardian, and The Guardian says, all the talk right now is about when the U.S. goes after Iran's main nuclear facility, that they're going to be using these 5,000-pound bunker buster bombs. And I've seen that pretty much taken at face value, where like every media outlet is talking about it from that perspective.
Pretty sure those are like 30,000 pounds, but okay.
But
I just misspeak.
According to the report from The Guardian, it is literally actually on the table to use a tactical nuclear weapon against this Iranian facility. Now, I know just hearing that...
What?
You're like, what? What are we live in a fucking nightmare? Well, the answer is yes, we live in a nightmare. So this is actually on the table. Now, the White House, in an attempt to sort of downplay this report, they come out and say, no, we're not really considering that. But then the last thing they say is, but all options are on the table. So then the Guardian reporter fired back and said, after my report that they're considering using a tactical nuke, they are validating that they are considering using a tactical nuke. If all options are on the table, that means the tactical nuclear option is on the table. And by the way, there's an actual reason why this might even be not just possible, but maybe even potentially likely that they would use this, is because we've seen the impact of the 2,000-pound bunker busters. So Israel has a bunch of those that we gave them, and as you all know, they've...
What is... Fuck, I didn't watch... We should watch this video.
Imagine a weapon
8-minute pit stop. Good luck.
so powerful it can cut through concrete, earth, and steel to obliterate underground bunkers, weapon silos, and command centers buried hundreds of feet beneath the surface. In today's exploration, we'll unravel the engineering secrets behind bunker buster bombs and missiles, which enable militaries to penetrate fortified targets with unmatched precision and power.
This is crazy. I think they just... Well, it's not really that crazy. It's crazy because you can't do too many of them. Because it's like a conventional warhead inside of a conventional ICBM, but they put your mom at the end of it, and she just...
Speed impact to delayed detonation. These specialized weapons represent a remarkable leap in military technology, capable of taking out targets that once seemed untouchable. In modern warfare, where adversaries shield their most critical assets under layers of reinforced concrete and deep underground, conventional bombs don't stand a chance. But bunker busters do. They are designed to breach these hardened defenses, reaching targets hidden from ordinary weapons. So, how do they work? Let's dive into the key features that make bunker busters unique, taking a closer look at some of the most iconic examples and their roles in warfare. Bunker busters rely on a combination of speed, dense materials, and intelligent guidance to deliver powerful explosions exactly where they're needed. Here's how these elements come together in action. A critical factor in bunker busters' penetrating power is kinetic energy, which relies on mass and speed. When released from high altitudes, bombs like the GBU-28 gain enormous momentum as they accelerate downwards, harnessing gravity to achieve impact speeds that can pierce through earth and concrete.
Gravity?
Developed during the Gulf War, the GBU-28 was specially designed to destroy deeply buried bunkers in Iraq. Weighing in at 5,000 pounds, this bomb can smash through up to 100 feet of earth or 20 feet of solid concrete, reaching fortified command bunkers that other bombs simply couldn't touch.
Damn!
Missiles like the AGM-158 JASM or Joint...
When people mention X things against international law, how does that get enforced? Like the USA is not going to bend over to international law. When people mention international law, you should just ignore everything they say, because everything they're going to say is retarded after that. Don't even worry about it. Nobody cares about international law, especially political commentators, especially the Middle East. So it doesn't matter.
Air-to-surface standoff missile, on the other hand, use propulsion to gain momentum over long distances, making them perfect for striking targets from up to 230 miles away.
Damn!
With high kinetic energy preserved throughout their journey, these missiles achieve impact speeds that allow them to breach fortified facilities deep within enemy territory. To penetrate multiple layers without shattering on impact, bunker busters are designed with ultra-dense casings made from materials like tungsten or depleted uranium. The GBU-57 Massive Ordnance Penetrator, or MOP, one of the heaviest bunker busters in the world at 30,000 pounds, is built with a reinforced steel casing. This gives it the durability to smash through up to 200 feet of reinforced concrete, or nearly 300 feet of earth, maintaining its structure as it descends deep into the target before detonating. This durability is crucial. If the casing failed on impact, the bomb would detonate prematurely and miss its mark. The GBU-57's structural strength, combined with its sheer weight, allows it to penetrate the most fortified targets imaginable, including nuclear bunkers and command centers hidden far below ground. The Taurus KEPD-350 missile, a collaboration between Germany and Sweden, also showcases this concept with its unique Broach warhead, which has a two-stage detonation system. First, an initial charge pierces through the target's defenses, creating an entry point. Then, a secondary explosion, delayed until after penetration, delivers a powerful blast within the target's core. With this feature, the Taurus can disable even the most secure facilities, reaching depths that only bunker busters can achieve. To ensure that explosions occur precisely at the target's core, bunker busters use delayed fuses. Rather than exploding on impact, the fuse allows the weapon to penetrate a predetermined depth before triggering the blast. This enables a more controlled and precise explosion, maximizing the weapon's destructive power exactly where it's needed most.
You say international law doesn't matter, which is consistent with the realist school of thought in IR and like people like Mearsheimer. Do you approve of international law? Genuinely curious. No. First of all, Mearsheimer only thinks that international law doesn't exist for a U.S. adversary, but it must exist for us. Number one, be clear, Mearsheimer never applies the same standards to two sides of a conflict. And then number two, yeah, I think international law is really important. I think that most people try to like keep it in mind, I think. Believe it or not, Iran, I think, generally does. The proxies absolutely do not. Israel definitely does. Russia kind of, but not really that much. And then right now, Ukraine, I think, largely does, but I don't even know if they would have the option to. Yeah, I think Ukraine does, from what I'm aware of.
For example, the GBU-28.
What about the USA? Yeah, the USA kind of does. The sketchiest thing for the USA, but I don't know how all the determination on everything is the Guantanamo Bay, like detaining people, and then the torture stuff. I'm pretty sure is not okay. It's not good. But I don't know where the legality comes down on the side of like terrorists or ununiformed soldiers or how any of that works. I'm not sure.
This explosion, maximizing the weapon's destructive power exactly where it's needed most. For example, the GBU-28 uses a customizable delay fuse, making it capable of reaching fortified bunkers by timing the explosion to detonate only after penetrating several layers of concrete or soil. The delayed fuse is also central to the Taurus KEPD-350, whose two-stage warhead system enables a timed detonation sequence. The initial explosion clears a path, while the second explosion hits the core, delivering a lethal impact to critical points within the target. To hit fortified targets with pinpoint accuracy, bunker busters utilize advanced guidance systems, ensuring they strike their intended marks regardless of distance or environmental challenges. The GBU-28 is equipped with laser guidance, which allows it to lock onto a laser-designated target. This high level of precision is crucial when striking hardened bunkers, where even a slight deviation could mean missing the target's most vulnerable spot. On the other hand, the GBU-57 MOP and the AGM-158 JASM rely on GPS guidance, which allows them to navigate through complex airspace and reach distant or hidden targets. Beyond the conventional bunker busters, militaries have developed a wide range of strategies and technologies to breach fortified enemy positions. Here are some notable methods. Number 1. Thermobaric weapons. Extreme pressure and heat. Thermobaric weapons, also known as fuel-air explosives, are designed to deliver an incredibly high-temperature blast that generates overpressure capable of devastating bunkers, tunnels, and caves. Upon detonation, a thermobaric weapon disperses an aerosol cloud of fuel that mixes with atmospheric oxygen before igniting, causing a high-temperature explosion with immense pressure. This can reach inaccessible bunker spaces and travel around corners.
Travel around corners?
Number 2. Hypersonic missiles. Sheer speed and penetration. Hypersonic missiles traveling at speeds exceeding Mach 5 offer immense kinetic energy on impact. Due to their incredible speed and dense casings, they can penetrate even the most fortified structures with minimal interception. Number 3. Earth-penetrating nuclear weapons, or EPNWs. Ultimate bunker-busting power. EPNWs are designed to reach depths that conventional explosives cannot, and provide unparalleled destructive power. EPNWs burrow into the ground before detonating, producing a shockwave that devastates underground structures. The B-61 Mod 11 is an American nuclear gravity bomb modified for Earth penetration, capable of reaching deep-seated targets. Number 4. Directed energy weapons, or DEWs. Heat and pressure focused with precision.
Havana Syndrome.
DEWs offer a futuristic method to compromise bunkers by focusing immense energy on a single point. These weapons can superheat surfaces, weakening structures or disabling electronic systems within bunkers. The U.S. Army's Athena laser system aims to breach surface defenses and could complement conventional bunker-busting efforts. As military strategies continue to evolve, the arsenal of tools available for breaching these fortified structures grows, ensuring that no bunker remains a sanctuary. The increasing sophistication of these weapons signifies a shift in how wars are fought, emphasizing precision, speed, and the ability to neutralize threats that lie beneath the surface. In an age where underground fortifications have become a norm for adversaries, understanding the capabilities and limitations of bunker busters and their alternatives will be essential for military effectiveness on the modern battlefield.
Okay.
Use them in Gaza. Now, you could see the impact when one of these things lands, right? And yeah, it's, 2,000-pound bunker buster it's a big deal. It's a very powerful weapon. But at the same time, the amount of damage that it does, certainly that's not enough to get the Iranian nuclear facility, which is literally like in a mountain at the base of the mountain, right?
Damn.
And so we saw the damage the 2,000-pound ones do. That's nowhere near the damage you would need to take out this nuclear facility. But they say it's okay, it's going to be 5,000-pound bunker busters. But even the impact of the 5,000-pound bunker busters, a lot of experts think that is not enough to get this nuclear facility, right? And so then the question becomes, all right, are you guys talking about let's launch like 10 5,000-pound bunker busters and think that that might work and get all the way to the base of this mountain where there's a nuclear facility buried inside? Or is this just a fucking smokescreen? And the real thing that you want to do
Nuke.
is maybe use a couple bunker busters, but also a fucking tactical nuclear weapon.
Oh my God.
I mean, honestly, this is
crazy.
The fact that we're even having this conversation is immensely disturbing. And it shows you that we've lost our fucking minds. Now, by the way, another part of the reporting, I believe this was Seymour Hersh's reporting, he
Thank
says,
God.
So the U.S. is all on board. Israel is obviously, over the moon at the fact that we're greenlighting regime change. But there actually is a disagreement at the bottom of this. Because even though the U.S. has basically agreed to everything, the disagreement comes with, well, what happens after? Like, what happens after we do the regime change?
Mm-hmm.
Well, according to the reporting, J.D. Vance, and he's one of the voices in the room who's saying this, and I think Trump may have tepidly agreed to what J.D. Vance is saying here. But his argument is like, all right, well, obviously what we do is we overthrow the supreme leader, and then we put in power some, moderately religious force, right? In other words, you don't go from a full Shia Islamic theocracy and go full secularization, right? Because that would be like a culture shock. That would lead to further backlash on top of the backlash of
Not a culture shock.
outside power overthrowing your government. So J.D. Vance says, yeah, like a moderate Shia leader, right? And apparently the Israelis are apoplectic about that. And they say, no, we want no Muslim leader at all. No Muslim leader. And effectively what the Israelis want is a total Western puppet, but more specifically, an Israeli puppet. So obviously the name that comes to mind when you talk about that is the son of the Shah, the former dictator of Iran, Reza Pahlavi. But this guy, I mean, to say he has no credibility is an understatement. This guy was out there on TV literally cheering the fact that his own country and his own people were getting bombed, right? This guy was
Wasn't it a little uncanny that there was a 5.1 earthquake in Iran today? I don't know. How often are there earthquakes in Iran? I've never checked before.
Washington, D.C. for a really long time. And so he has no authority. He actually reminds me of this character, Ahmed Chalabi, who was like the handpicked U.S. choice to be president of Iraq after we toppled Saddam Hussein, right? And the guy had no popular support. So obviously he was a colossal fraud, and that project imploded immediately. And I think a similar thing would happen with Reza. But according to the reporting, they're actually not even really considering Reza. But, you know, the Israelis want somebody who's just a total puppet to Israel and not Muslim at all. So let's be serious here, guys. The conversations that we're having here are absolute lunatic conversations. Like, literally, none of this stuff should be on the table. This is all so fucking crazy. And like I said, it's like that movie Groundhog Day. We're literally all the way back in 2002, and we're hearing all the arguments from the Bush administration officials about why we have to overthrow Iraq, and they have weapons of mass destruction,
I'm coming.
and they don't do 9/11, and there's an attack on
Do the
Say
CIA. Just say the CIA. Say
we're getting such similar arguments
one
now
time.
with this.
I'm coming.
Iran doesn't have a nuclear weapon.
Fuck.
They weren't building a nuclear weapon.
Never mind.
Even if they were building a nuclear weapon, they weren't going to fucking use it. It would only serve as a deterrent to Israeli and Western aggression. Like, every level of this conversation is bullshit. Even when you grant them that what their concern is Iran's nukes. That's not even true. The point is, Iran challenges Israeli hegemony in the region. They want to stop that. So it's simply about regime change. It's simply about Israel and the U.S. We are on the offense. We are aggressive. We are the ones who are committing crimes, right? We're the ones who are violating international law. It's actually not hard to figure out in the slightest. It turns out the country that's been doing a live stream genocide for over a year and bombing 4 different countries, turns out that country actually is the aggressor. You want to know the last time Iran had a war? You ready for this? 250 years ago. And you want me to believe the country that hasn't had a war in 250
Am I missing the... Is this when I found out the Iran-Iraq war wasn't actually Iran and Iraq? It was like Turkmenistan or something? Wait, what? I haven't gotten to this point yet, but... He corrected himself in the comments. I'm going to say the last time Iran started a war was 250 years ago. Okay, I don't know what the origination of all this is, so I wouldn't be able to say, but it also kind of ignores all of the proxies that Iran supports, but okay.
50 fucking years that they're on the offense here, that they're the baddies here. It's just so fucking preposterous. It's so preposterous. So again, huge news. Regime change has already been greenlit. All this talk about just going after the nuclear facility is bullshit. They've already greenlit regime change. This is according to Seymour Hersh, the legendary reporter. And
the legendary report.
They are very seriously considering, if not leaning in favor of, using a tactical nuke. And the other thing is, if Trump in his mind feels like, if I use a tactical nuke in this scenario, that would help establish deterrence with the rest of the world, and that would make people think these motherfuckers are crazy, and then Trump would get the fear and respect that he wants from the rest of the world. I'm saying this is in his mind. This is not the reality. The reality is you look at that and you go, this motherfucker belongs in an insane asylum in a straitjacket on Seroquel, right? That would be the correct reaction. But in his mind, he thinks, oh, this makes it much more likely that my word carries weight when I weigh in on Russia and Ukraine. This makes it more likely that all these countries that fucking like look down on us and don't like us, that they realize at the very least you have to fucking fear us and you have to listen to what we say. And so this is seriously being weighed, y'all. This is seriously being weighed. It's fucking horrible. And as I always say, man, do not say you weren't warned that Trump was a colossal warmonger. I cannot tell you how many times before the election I would do screaming segments at the top of my lungs. Don't choose him. He is the biggest warmonger. Look at what he did in his first term. And water off a duck's ass for most people in the political conversation. That drove me crazy. It's like I was pissing into the wind trying to explain basic facts about how this guy's gonna fucking destroy everything. So those are our big updates that we have for you. Now, on top of that, guys, everybody definitely keep your eye on the channel because Crystal and I did a big debate with Jan Uger of the Young Turks for Crystal Klein and Friends this week. You have the teaser clip drops in a little bit today, and then you have the full show drops a little bit later on around 8 o'clock Eastern time tonight. Definitely sign up on Substack because you're going to want to see this whole debate. So the way we split it up is Crystal did the first 30 minutes, I did the second 30 minutes, and we're posting, I believe it's about the first 30 minutes, so basically Crystal's portion of the debate is being posted as the teaser clip on the channel. You'll see we're opening up the clip with a compilation of just how wild the debate got, where basically everybody was yelling at each other. So you'll see a little mashup of all the times we yelled at each other, but for $5 per month below, you'll get
You're a director of national intelligence. You have that Iran is building a nuclear weapon. Your intelligence community has said they have no evidence that they are at this point.
Well, then my intelligence community is wrong. Who in the intelligence community said that?
He has no idea about literally anything, and he doesn't know what is happening in the world. He doesn't know what's happening in his own government. He doesn't know what's happening on TV. He has no concept of anything. He's an actual fucking midwit. Or dimwit, sorry, not midwit. He's a dimwit.
You're a director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard.
She's wrong.
So you have...
By the way, my favorite part about this is, like, you guys can shitpost on Twitter all you want, but this is an actual lawsuit, and it's happening, and it's coming, and you're going to have to argue in front of a judge, and this shit is not going to work, right? It's not going to work. That's the best part about this. You guys are fucking screaming into the wind. You're not going to stop what's coming. But anyway.
True. Good luck. Good luck.
Although I think nobody really cares about any of these people. Least of all Hassan, who is not opening his wallet, by the way. They've each made everybody's made a GoFundMe. Denim's ran. She was so fast, and she wanted to open hers before Casey Tron and Frogan.
Well, to be fair, she had an account.
It doesn't
She
take
already
long
had
to
an
make
account because she opened one and closed it.
Right, that's what I mean. So
She had a fast track.
exactly. She didn't need to do that step.
So they all now have a GoFundMe, and I think it's so funny that now that they're competing against each other, for defense dollars, and Samog the Dragon, aka Hassan Piker, the communist, socialist savior, he is not opening his wallet. He is not promoting. He's barely promoted their GoFundMe's.
He did.
He retweeted it or
gave them
something?
a very mild shout out, and he didn't donate. Why the fuck wouldn't he donate at least?
That I don't know.
Like, why he's saying you guys go support them? I'm not. That's what he said.
It's very
He
interesting.
did not say I'm not. He didn't say
No,
that.
by not
thanks,
donating,
Carnivore,
that is
187.
what Ethan is.
He's Mr.
interpreting.
Generosity, isn't he?
He's like
He's
a token donation for some of your strongest soldiers would be warranted. In
He's
this
Mr.
situation.
Generosity. He's Mr. Charity. He couldn't even drop
It might be coming. Might be coming.
Oh, he's got to do it on camera.
Better come a lot. It better come a lot because their GoFundMe so far are not going well. It turns out when it comes to defending them against what's pretty obviously egregious, undefensible behavior, and not just fueled by hating me, which is what Frogan's initial promise was. Not that she raised, what did she raise, like 40,000 or something?
Way in which I have this wrong because
what is this?
It's not often that I'm speaking to someone who is as informed as you are about the details of life on the ground there. But I think it sounds absolutely cartoonish to say, and I forget where this point originates. But
Zionism and jihadism. Oh boy, 2 hours and 15 minutes.
But it sounds like wartime propaganda to say if the Palestinians simply laid down their arms, there would be peace in the region. If the Israelis laid down their arms, there would be a genocide. Right? That sounds insane. I think certainly to a first approximation, something like that is true and has been true for as long as Israel has existed. Perhaps just react to that. But that asymmetry is almost in crystalline form all that I think you need to understand about the predicament in the Middle East.
I know something about your podcast and your audience, and they're expecting rich depth, which I'm going to, so I'm struggling to deliver here.
But also what I'm expecting, what I'm urging you to do is please, if there's any crucial nuance that you think I'm eliding by putting it that starkly, I really want to hear it.
It's absolutely that stark. That is exactly the truth. It is a simple truth. It is an accurate truth. The parts of the Arab and Muslim world that are allied with us, not all of them, not the Emiratis, but quite a few of them. Certainly, I think the Egyptians would not beat around the bush and just admitting it. The day we lay down our arms and for some reason are incapable of lifting them back up again and punishing anyone who takes advantage of that moment is the day that a great many Middle Easterners find their courage and come marching in and destroying us. But the nuance I want to add to that, and you will not find an honest, over in the diaspora, among sort of diaspora, I don't know what, professors of some of these nations, you will find people, pretending that they come from these deeply liberal societies and depicting their societies in ways that no one on the ground in their societies would recognize. But there's a depth there. It is not animalistic animus. It is something profound. People live, this is my methodological sort of bottom line, and I developed it as a political journalist. People live in stories. People live in narratives of where they come from, where they're going, what's happening to them. And if you understand those stories, and those stories are always complex and rich and fascinating and produce contradictions within the minds of people, and contradictions built into the stories, and they don't feel like contradictions to the people themselves, or they're willing to live with these contradictions because reality is big and complex. And
okay, I'll cover this.
As the conflict between Israel and Iran continues to escalate, with Israel maintaining air superiority over Iran and Iran countering with ballistic missile attacks on both military and civilian targets across Israel, the main question has been whether or not the United States will enter the fight beyond providing tanker support and point missile.
Damn. Is that really the size difference between these planes?
Military and civilian targets across Israel. The main question.
Look, he's like a little kid, and this is his dad feeling him up.
Has been whether or not the United States will enter the fight beyond providing tanker support and point missile defense. Late last week, President Trump left the G7 conference in Canada to return to D.C. to focus on the conflict. At that time, Trump expressed support for Israel and repeated the stance that it was unacceptable for Iran to acquire a nuclear weapon. At the same time, the U.S. military continued the massive mobilization toward the region. As Sluggo mentioned in the previous episode, over the weekend, the Air Force launched what is known as a conga line of cargo planes, tankers, and fighters eastward. The U.S. Navy announced that they were moving the Nimitz strike group from the Western Pacific to the North Arabian Sea, where it will join the Vincent strike group that has been there since Operation Rough Rider against the Houthis in Yemen started a few months ago. Wow. The Ford strike group is leaving on a scheduled deployment and could join the other two strike groups if required. Remember, we did an episode of Board Ford a year and a half ago, right after she returned from her previous deployment, and we wish Godspeed to the strike group as they get underway this time. But for all of these moving parts, it appears as if American involvement in the Israel-Iran conflict now boils down to one mission that Israel can't carry out by themselves, and that's taking out the nuclear enrichment facility buried 200 feet underground at Fordow, deep inside the borders of Iran. That mission calls for the B-2 Spirit stealth bomber armed with the GBU-57 massive ordnance penetrator. This wouldn't be the first use of this capability in recent history. Channel subscribers might remember that the B-2 armed with the MOP was employed against a Houthi underground weapons storage bunker during the Biden administration last October. Here's an excerpt from the episode we did at that time that gives some background about the GBU-57 and the B-2 stealth bomber.
Okay.
The B-2 is the only airplane in the inventory that can carry the GBU-57 massive ordnance penetrator, or MOP, a 30,000-pound GPS-guided munition that contains the equivalent of about 5,600 pounds of TNT. The Air Force has previously claimed that the MOP is capable of penetrating up to 200 feet underground before exploding. The GBU-57 was developed by Boeing specifically for the B-2 following the invasion of Iraq in 2003, when the U.S. military battle damage assessment revealed that their bunker busters were not effectively penetrating many Iraqi fortifications. But the massive bomb wasn't ready for operational use until 2011, when the Air Force took delivery of 20 of them at an approximate cost of $3.5 million each, including the associated support equipment. The MOP has proved to be an effective weapon, only hampered by the fact it doesn't fuse until it stops moving, which can cause it to fly through the intended target in certain cases. The B-2 was originally conceived during the Carter administration in the late 70s as one of the options for the Advanced Technology Bomber Program, the main technology being stealth. As a matter of fact, President Carter so believed that stealth was the key to success that he canceled the B-1 bomber program. He was later resurrected by the Reagan administration. The B-2 was designed as a super secret black program labeled Senior Ice and built in a converted Ford auto assembly plant near Los Angeles. The aircraft rollout happened at Palmdale in 1988, and the first public flight was at Edwards Air Force Base in 1989. B-2s cost about $1 billion each. Originally, the U.S. Air Force was slated to buy 132 of them, but that number ultimately dwindled to 21, 19 of which are part of the current inventory, all based at Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri. The B-2 is a 4-engine subsonic aircraft flown by 2 pilots, one of whom acts as the mission commander. The airplane is 69 feet long and 172 feet wide and can carry up to 50,000 pounds of ordnance. Pilots, one of whom acts as the mission commander. The airplane is 69 feet long and 172 feet wide and can carry up to 50,000 pounds of ordnance, including Mark 80 series conventional bombs, B-61 and 83 nuclear bombs, standoff weapons like JSOW and JASM, and as already mentioned...
We really only have like 21 of these? Like today, that's how many have been manufactured?
The GBU Massive Ordnance Penetrator. In May, the U.S. Air Force moved 6 B-2s from Whiteman in Missouri to the remote island of Diego Garcia in the Indian Ocean, but satellite imagery shows that they're not there anymore, having been replaced by B-52s and F-15s. As stated in the previous B-2 episode, the Spirit is the only aircraft in the Pentagon's inventory that can deliver the Massive Ordnance Penetrator, so all eyes are now on Whiteman Air Force Base. When President Trump left the G7, it seemed as if he might be eager to join Israel in the fight, invoking, quote-unquote, we, meaning Israel and the United States on social media when posting about the conflict. But a few days later, regarding when a strike might occur, President Trump said this from the Oval Office.
I have ideas as to what to do, but I haven't made a final. I like to make the final decision 1 second before it's due, because things change. I mean, especially with war. Things change with war. It can go from one extreme to the other.
And yesterday, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said this.
Based on the fact that there's a substantial chance of negotiations that may or may not take place with Iran in the near future, I will make my decision whether or not to go within the next 2 weeks.
President Trump's backing away from immediate action may be a function of inputs from MAGA influencers like Steve Bannon, who visited the White House yesterday, presumably to talk with the president about whether the U.S. should enter the fight with Israel against Iran. Bannon has been very vocal about how we should stay out of it because that doing otherwise would drag the focus away from the war on the deep state and be a betrayal of part of what got Trump elected, which is the promise of ending forever wars. Obviously, there's a lot going on here, and we'll be hawking the situation and providing updates as the information warrants. So if you're not already a subscriber, become one so you don't miss anything. And in the meantime, I look forward to talking to you again very soon.
What the real truth about using a GBU-57? I thought this was going to be like some earth-shattering news. I felt like it was just a standard video. But I thought we were about to... What was the real truth? I thought we were getting some truth bombs. Destiny, Hassan Slop. He stole your talking points and he uses them against Ethan.
Have that whole debate where he did the worm. Yeah, I mean, Ethan Klein is very similar to Donald Trump in many ways. Donald Trump will let
what the fuck?
Bygones be bygones as long as you offer fealty or as long as he can use you. Ethan sees Asmongold and XUC as allies. Ethan sees a bunch of neo-Nazis as reliable allies because they all fucking despise me.
When has he ever said anything good at all about Asmongold? Or even XQC? Maybe he has and I just missed it?
And that's precisely the reason why he's perfectly fine with aligning with them and working with them.
Working with them? Like how?
Because he operates on the enemy of my enemy is my friend attitude. That's it. Pathetic. Pathetic, immoral, desperate man. A 40-year-old still doing shit like this.
He's so... Dude, that gray patch on the side of his face. Whoo! It's fucking him up hard. Whoo! It's fucking him up hard.
I think he's beyond upset that the nuke failed in every way. The main goal of stopping Assange's infiltration in mainstream media was a massive failure. The goal to deplatform and make smaller creators featured in the video lose viewers backfired tremendously. Every small streamer that was featured has reached unprecedented levels of success after the video. That too.
What? Every small, unprecedented levels of success? For Sean DeBlack, Denims, Frogan, iDubbbz has basically gotten fucking... It feels like he's gotten nuked off the internet from his whole video. What is he talking about?
That probably pisses him off. So I think he's trying to... he's trying to throw money at the problem and frivolous lawsuits. I don't know what the goal here is. Breaking React content in general. After saving fair use, Ethan Klein will now kill fair use. One man's conquest. One man's conquest to initially create a precedent that saved fair use, that basically unfolded this new era of content creation without fear of frivolous lawsuits, is now going to turn back into... What is this? Okay, stop showing me this fucking bullshit.
Uh-oh, did they link something that he can't respond to?
Stop. Please, can this be the last coverage? Yes, it will absolutely be the last coverage.
Oh, he's not going to talk about it at all. The orbiters are on their own. Good luck.
The funniest part is all these clip farming accounts are cheering this on, not understanding they're the worst offenders. Yeah, what happened with the Noah Samson lawsuit? Chicken out of that one, didn't want the smoke. Exactly. I personally don't understand how so many spineless fucking drama content creators are like throwing their hat in the ring. Yeah, it's just drama. These people, 3 women are gonna have their lives ruined because the entire ecosystem of streamers built their careers around their harassment, and chatters are getting fucking drama boners over it. Exactly. Anyway, that's all I got for today because I am gonna go shoot my podcast, the Fear and Podcast.
Camera does he use? Keeps going in and out of focus. I have no idea. I think Sony's got the only good autofocus at the moment. And if he's got something expensive, I guess it would be like an FX3. Isn't that what the go-to big boy camera right now? From Sony? Or prosumer camera? I don't know. Why would you use autofocus on a static shot? I don't know, because you're leaning back and forward and shit. All right. Unlock display capture by going live for 25 minutes. I can't do display capture or camera. Well, then what the fuck is it? What is it even going to stream? Well, okay. I have to use my phone one more time. Hold on one second. Finish the Kulinsky vid? What, he was just showing all the shows or whatever. There you go.
Get the full video as soon as it drops, 8 o'clock tonight Eastern time, or sign up for free, and you will get the audio podcast as soon as it drops, and that drops tomorrow in full. But you definitely don't want to see it. Basically, I mean, the gist of the debate was this. Cenk, after Trump got the White House again this time, he looked at the scenario and he thought to himself, all right, look, I want to win, and I think that the way to win is to try to build alliances with what he views as the populist right, and that's how the left wins power. And maybe if there's an alliance between the populist right and the left, we can get some wins under the Trump administration, like, for example, maybe we'll get them to cut the Pentagon, or maybe we'll get paid family leave. That populist right and left-wing alliance is the only thing that can save us now. That's how he was thinking, because he was thinking like that because in Trump's first term, he was a big resistor. He was the fuck Trump and the horse he rode in on a crusade against these people. And so he felt like the hardcore resistance in his mind didn't really work. So now, all right, I gotta try to open hearts and open minds and build bridges and get more people on our side from their team, right? Which is understandable from his perspective because he felt like when I was crusading, that didn't work. In his mind, he thinks I only made the problem worse by being so partisan and such a crusader.
Like crazy fast or?
And Crystal and I had the exact opposite evolution, where in Trump's first term, we felt like we were doing that project. I mean, Crystal's whole show is built on that project. Can the populist right and the populist left get together, and can we get change for the better if these two factions link up, basically? That's what her and Sauter have been doing since their fucking show started back when they did Rising, never mind Breaking Points. And Crystal's conclusion is similar to mine. Remember, I did this when I went on Joe Rogan's show a bunch of times and tried to convince him to be a lefty. And he would agree with me and shake his head and, say that's correct. And then 3 weeks later, have on Ben Shapiro and tell him everything he says is correct. And then eventually, as you all know, Joe Rogan endorsed Donald Trump and went to the inauguration and gave him a hot stone massage on his podcast. And so we had like the opposite evolution, where we felt like, no, when I held their hand and walked them through it, that didn't work. If anything, it made them feel more validated in supporting Trump, right? It made them feel like, oh, here's a lefty, and they're telling me that some of the stuff Trump says is true, therefore, I'm correct in supporting Trump. And the other mistake that Crystal and I made is maybe we would over-focus on criticizing Democrats. Not saying that criticism weren't legit. I would stand by most of those criticisms I made of Democrats. But when you hyper-focus on criticism of Democrats, as perhaps we did in Trump's first term, you give people the misleading impression that, oh, the Republicans are obviously better, right? And so we have total opposite evolutions. Where now Crystal and I are in the mindset of fuck Trump, fuck his regime, fuck the horse he rode in on. Honestly, at this late date, if you're still seeing the rampant fascism happening in front of us and you're still on his team, I'm totally comfortable calling you a fascist in that scenario. So we're the resistors, we're the defiant ones, and Cenk is trying to, build bridges and open hearts and open minds and change minds, and he thinks that, you get more bees with honey or however the fuck that saying goes. So it was a big debate overall, and I think you guys are really going to enjoy it. Much love to Cenk for being willing to...
You know those BS every time you get banned on there? No, if I figured out how it works, you'd probably just make 10 accounts at a time and get them all stream ready. Or I could have other people do it for me.
Now, one of my earliest reviews was a review that blew up, and I just got widespread hate for it.
For what?
My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. Come
on, dude. You just...
What?
No. It's bad?
No, it's not bad. It's just okay.
What do you mean just...
I think
Run Away.
I think he has better
It's got
albums.
the Nicki verse on Monster.
Yeah, there's highlights
It's
on
got
it.
the best Jay-Z verse I've ever heard. Goblins, spookies.
That is not the best Jay-Z verse.
Halloween, Frankenstein. Things that go bump in the night. Monsters. It's great.
It's okay.
It's come on.
College Dropout's better.
You gave Yeezus a 3?
I gave it a 5.
But that was a music that when people heard it, they were like, "This is a new type of a thing."
I mean,
know
that depends on what you've heard.
Kanye was copying Death Grips.
I have it on
100%. What?
I have it on good authority that a friend of mine who was connected to his team, helped burn him a bunch of CDs
Who,
of
Nick
stuff
Fuentes?
that no, it was the early 2010s.
Careful.
Though that freak was still around that time.
Nick Fuentes? Yeah, he was in kindergarten.
Yeah, probably. No, he was I can't remember.
Was he? He's like an old man that looks
Oh, the phone always has to be like the. Oh my god. Okay.
like a little kid. Gary Coleman?
No. He's younger. Anyway, I don't even want to talk about that freakazoid.
Sorry, can you stop cussing on my show?
I know a friend of mine who had knowledge that a bunch of sort of prevailing industrial hip hop artists,
so they're copying Trent Reznor,
including Death Grips, they had their music burned on a CD. He was exposed to it. But the thing is, I think
getting influenced by other artists.
But with that being said, I think Travis Scott had more of an impact on the sound of that record than Death Grips did.
So what?
I'm not saying that is a bad thing. You're talking.
That's just what art is.
You posited a few minutes ago that there was absolutely no Death Grips influence.
You're saying he's biting, right?
I think it's not that interesting if you've heard other stuff. Is what I'm saying.
You're such a dickhead, dude.
Well, I mean, that's kind of my job.
It's so brave, though. I really because it is infuriating, right? When I love. I like music a lot, right?
Sure.
And if you disagree with me, it does upset me. Mm-hmm. And I do think you're doing some sort of thing for attention, to girls or something.
To if it's for girls,
are like, oh my
it's
God,
not.
he doesn't like Yeezus.
If it's for girls, it's not working.
He's crazy. He's different. You're doing it. No.
My audience has
what upsets me is this.
My audience is 80% men.
Really?
Yeah.
Lucky. 80%. I think us too. It's a terrible feeling, isn't it?
I'm neutral on it.
You're neutral on it? No, it doesn't feel good.
No, I'm neutral on it.
No, you want
it has
you want a
upsides and
50-50.
Why?
So you don't want to just male online internet population? It's not
I mean, I feel like it has its upsides if they're watching me, they're not watching Andrew Tate.
What you think that that's a thing?
Sure.
Okay, I have to go live for 25 minutes, and then this is all done. What do I have to do? Wait, live. Add a title. Boring. Don't watch. 25 minutes. And then hopefully I can use my computer. Didn't we go through this before? Yeah, but you have to do it like 3 times or something. I think I've only done it twice. And you know what? It's a fuck day anyway. I mean, a messed up day. Whoops. So we're just going to read. Good luck. Boring stuff. 1911 is where we were at last. What's next?